Thanks for joining us today for this Privado presentation on unlocking data flow transparency with privacy code scanning. Just as a brief way of intro, my name is Ben. I'm the product manager here at Privado. The things we're going to talk about today are kind of the first problem is unintentional data sharing and what the impacts can be on an organization when you do share data unintentionally to third parties, vendors, things like that. What is privacy code scanning? Then we'll do a brief product demo and then talk about how those features and the things we talked about map onto outcomes for our customers. And then we'll do a brief Q&A. So the first part I want to talk about is the problem. So what is the problem that customers are facing today with third-party data sharing? So you're going to see in this graphic, what you've got is your code base, your code host, say GitLab, GitHub, Bitbucket, and a lot of those applications that are built using that code are sending data such as first name, social security number, passport, et cetera, out to all these third parties. So that could be legitimate use and that could be fine. But often what we find with our customers is they'll run a scan and realize that they have data going to third parties that they thought they had, terminated a relationship with, or there's some data sharing happening even internally that they weren't aware of that is not authorized by the privacy policy. So you've got all these different third-party integrations, especially happening with the proliferation of so many SaaS tools today that really can cause you to unwittingly be sharing data with vendors and third parties that could be considered PII that your employees may not even be aware of. So Privado's solution really helps you lock that down in the sense that we detect preemptively before code is even pushed to production what third-party data flows are occurring. So any data sharing that's happening, and then allow you to make sure that you can modify the code before the next deployment so that that data isn't shared unwittingly with third parties or in a way that is not compliant with your third parties or with your third-party vendor contracts, I should say. So you can see here, there's a variety of different vendors that we support. So that can help you keep that data from flowing out to a variety of different vendors, which we'll talk about more in a little bit. So what is privacy code scanning? Privacy code scanning allows you to discover data elements, find those hidden data flows, identify third-party sharing like we just mentioned, and automate data mapping. So basically what it'll do is scan your user-facing products, any backend services, automatically discover where personal data is being processed, and then also show you where it's flowing to or where it's coming from. So what this allows you to do is detect those flows with Privado to thousands of third parties and vendors before they reach production. You can see just a sampling of ones we support here. And then the same thing is true for all these different database types. So dozens of databases are supported, all the major ones, and even some minor ones that people use to store PII, store data at all. We'll detect the data flows to there as well. So let's jump to the product demo really quick, and I'll give you an example of how some of that functions. So this is Privado. This is the data inventory dashboard that covers all the different data element types or data entities that we have in the application. So you can see here, we've got our top data categories listed and how many data elements are in it, top data elements, third-party locations, top third parties in terms of what third parties are being used the most up throughout our sample applications here, and the recently added third parties. So what happens in Privado is you ingest your code repositories, or we ingest your code repositories from your code host. So we just need read access to a GitHub, a GitLab, Bitbucket, Subversion, and then we scan those repositories. We scan the application source code and generate data flows, a full inventory of your data elements, third parties and databases, et cetera. So if I just jump to the data elements tab here, you'll see that we have a big list of all of our data elements. So in this case, we've got account name, password, email address. This is not an exhaustive list of everything Privado can detect. It's just what we found in the set of repositories that we've got in this particular account. So if I want to see where account name, for example, is being used across my systems, across my code base, I can click here and this will show me all the different locations where we've got account name being used. So you can see here we're sharing with Huawei, we're sharing with GitHub, Tumblr, Fast2SMS, this JDBC connector, so a variety of different storages and databases. You can see we break them out by read and write operations, and then log leakages, which are particularly important for just baseline security. You just generally don't want to be sharing PII data to logs. They stick around for a long time. Tons of, especially developers, will have access to them. So we detect that as well. And you can see, just to jump to another one, if I look at email address, you'll see again where all of this is being shared to. And what you can do also is see the actual code repository that's being shared with. So if you wanted to dig in further to see where exactly what the code looks like, you can do that as well. And you'll also see here on the left, we've got the locations of those elements where we don't have a data flow specifically. We'll show you the files where it's located. Same thing for third parties. So you can see here all the different third parties we've got. You'll probably recognize a good number of the names. And if I click on GitHub, I can easily see all the different data that's going into GitHub and where it's coming from. Again, if I click on this, it'll show me the different repository of where that particular data element is being sent to GitHub. And you can see, again, we've got a variety of these third parties. We support literally thousands of different third parties and vendors. Same thing for databases. You'll see here, we've got a variety of different databases that supported Neo4j, JDBC. And then if I just click on these data flows here, again, you'll see a very similar chart or visualization rather that shows you the data flows going into this particular database. And this one has a lot, so it might be getting stuck. Let's try this one. There we go. So again, you can see where this is coming from, what particular repository may be coming from, or that's sending it into a particular database. So then from there, the other thing I wanted to talk about briefly is reporting. So with reports, what we do is take those data flows and help you run assessments on them so that you can do things like a ROPA report or a PIA or something like that. So you'll see here, we've got a row for every repository. And what that does is pull in these data categories that you saw earlier, pull in the data processors, et cetera. So that's fueled by our automated assessments, which you can see an example of here. So let's view this one. And this is a questionnaire, very common. It looks very similar to a typical ROPA report. These are configurable by the end user, so you can have this questionnaire look however you like. But a thing to note here, like when we were talking about the code scanning and detecting the data elements, you'll see here the differentiator for Privado in this case is we show you the data elements preemptively. So we're proactively getting them out of the code base so that when you give this particular survey to a developer or a business user even, we've pulled out the PI for them. You don't need to ask them to go figure out what data elements are being used in the application. They may not have touched it in several months or weeks or longer. And so they may not remember all the different PI data elements that are being used or the third-party vendors or databases, et cetera. So you can see here, we ask a number of different questions, but we also pull out these data elements that are required for doing a full inventory. And then as you fill this out, what you'll see is we have the ability to do these reports, and each one of these will generate, each one of those assessments will generate a report like this that shows you the various data categories, et cetera. So that is in the kind of data mapping format that regulators expect and makes it really nice for you to just kind of keep track of things. And they do auto update. So as the ROPA assessments or the PIA assessments are done, these will update incrementally and the data will be backfilled to every new version of it. So you don't have to refill from scratch every time. And then another side effect of the scans is this new issues feature that we've launched in beta, private beta. So what you'll see here is the different repositories that we've scanned, and you can see various data elements that have been detected, for example. So in this case, we've got account name has been detected, shows you right in the code where it was detected, gives you a suggested fix, which is just to make sure that this data element usage is in compliance with your privacy policy in this case. And you can see, again, there's account name being used right there. And if I click on account ID, same thing, there's account ID as well being sent to AWS. So again, you can kind of see where it's being used in the code. That helps you do that remediation piece. That's most of what I wanted to show for the demo. Let me jump back to our presentation quickly. So how does this look for our customers from a Privado usage perspective? So the things that we see our customers focusing on with Privado, and we built the tool to accelerate, is data mapping and assessments, kind of like I was showing there. We've got that automated ROPA generation, saving developers tons of time because we are proactively giving them that data that they want to see and that they need to see to do an effective assessment. And then the automatic data and audit-ready data mapping reports, which was that reports view that I showed you. Next one is finding and fixing shadow data flows. So similar to what we were focusing on at the beginning, really that that ability to detect data flows you may not be aware of that are still active, say from a vendor you maybe thought you had ended the relationship with, or just some internal sharing that you weren't aware of, going to a specific database, et cetera. And then also continuous privacy by design. So again, that issues feature I showed you is a good example. That's through CI/CD integration. So that those changes can be detected before the changes even hit production, before they even hit that main branch, and can be remediated at that step, rather than having to ship it to production, then do some data discovery, only to find out that you've already stored the data in some production database, and you have a risk that needs to be remediated. And the other thing to note there is that oftentimes when you find that data has been stored when it's not supposed to be, you don't know where it came from. And so Privado lets you really get that kind of source to data storage flow, so you can understand how a particular piece of data got there. So from translating that into customer outcomes perspective, here's what we're seeing across our customers today. So under 3 days to complete data maps. Normally this can take months, but because we provide some automation there, it happens a lot faster. We're surfacing again the relevant information to developers, especially as they're doing these data maps. So that just takes a lot less time. Typically what we see at customers is developers can be unresponsive or not be really motivated to respond to these requests for ROPA reports or PIAs. And so with Privado being so proactive and showing them the data, they become more of a reviewer rather than an executor of the reports. So that can be really helpful there. In terms of risk reduction, we see a lot of log leakages, just as an example, in those third-party sharings again. So we're able to surface to customers a large number on the initial scans, typically where logs are being, data is being leaked to logs, or data is being shared to third parties in a way that they actually aren't comfortable with. And that's related to the impact there from a business perspective is that huge growth in privacy-related fines in the last couple of years, and we anticipate that continuing to grow in the future. And then from a governance perspective, we're just saving a ton of time on those privacy checks. So if there is an issue with a particular application and you want to go through the Privado details and data elements and inventory to see what's happening, that saves a ton of time as well, because we've got it all there. So there's nothing, not nearly as much work as you need to do to dig up things and do a privacy check on an application, or conduct a PIA or a ROPA assessment. All right, I'm going to open it up for any questions we have. All right, someone's asking how customizable are the issues, or are they standardized? We do come with some standard issues by default so that you can get started really easily. You don't have to spend a bunch of time configuring them, but we do support customization as well. That's a pretty robust and flexible detection engine. So we've implemented custom policies already for customers who are on the beta, and we ship with some defaults so that you can get started very quickly. Someone else is asking, what languages do we support? We support all the major programming languages, really, over 30 from a data inventory perspective. So if you want to see, what data elements are being used, what third parties, what databases, et cetera, that's almost all programming languages, really, all the ones that are used commonly by businesses and in production, like I said, over 30. And then from a data flows perspective, we support Java, Python, JavaScript, TypeScript, and then Ruby and Go are almost in GA. We've got a couple more months to go on support for those, but those are the data flow languages. So if you remember the data flows that I showed, it does require some more advanced language support to show that flow all the way through the applications, but we support those languages right now and are always adding more to the roadmap. So if there is any languages that anyone has a question about, feel free to ping here, or in the future, just reach out to us and we'll let you know kind of where it sits on the roadmap. Next question is, how quickly can you integrate Privado in your CI/CD applications? The answer is really fast. We have some automation around that so that it's very easy to, say, programmatically create the webhooks if you're using GitHub or GitLab, and then just integrating the repository part straight up to get the repos ready for scanning is very fast. Really, as soon as you get someone with the right credentials to be able to link up Privado with a GitHub or a GitLab, the scans start right away. So, in under an hour, you should be able to see some data coming into your Privado instance. Okay, the last thing I want to mention, I'm not seeing any other questions, is we do have a webinar on the My Health, My Data Act next week. So if you're interested, please do keep an eye out for that one. And I'm sure we'll be pinging you proactively on it, but definitely join that one. We have a lot of good perspectives on that, so it should be fun. All right, I'm going to let you all go. Thank you so much for joining today. Look forward to speaking with you at the next one.